You're listening to Storage Nerds Podcast, where we unravel the best-kept secret of the real estate investing world, the storage industry. Join the grassroots guru in self-storage, Stacy Rossetti, in insightful discussions about finding, funding, and running these spaces, allowing you to yield the highest returns possible. Get your foot in the door on self-storage and discover how to properly purchase facilities, negotiate with sellers, and close the deal without worries. Start unpacking that investment wisdom with Stacy right now.
Let's get into the stages. I teach like investing in self-storage. I teach in 4 stages, and really the webinars and the coaching and everything that I go through is really based off of these 4 stages. So let's get into that. And so you guys have this as well. So the 4 stages are, so stage 1, right, is to get a facility under contract, which is probably where everybody's at right now. You all want to get a facility under contract. Does anybody here own a storage facility? Or does anybody here that's listening have a facility under contract? If you have one, then post it into the chat so I know. Where is it? Tell us about it so we have an idea. All right. And then you have stage 2, which is once you get it under contract, then you have to fund it, right? And you have to onboard it, right? And so this is stage 2, and then once and onboarding just means like onboarding is everything that you need to do in order to take payments on the first day or week that you own that facility, right? The longer that it takes you to be able to take payments, then the longer it takes for you to get money, right? And the whole purpose of owning a storage facility is to get that income coming in so that you have enough money to, pay your mortgage or whatever you have to do. So for instance, like we closed on a facility, like maybe a month ago now, and like our first mortgage is due. I got an SBA loan. And so our mortgage is coming up and due, and our mortgage is like $18,000 a month. Right. So like, in our minds, the question is, how are we able to make that enough money every single month to pay that mortgage on top of everything else that we need to do? You set all that up through the onboarding phase, right? You don't want to like wait till closing and then be like, okay, crap, now how do I get everything all set up? Okay. So we'll talk about that a little bit today because that's part of management. And then stage 3 is now you own the facility. This is where you've closed on it, right? That's your goal. This is where your goal is to get it under contract, right? So this is like, finding them. You're going to find it, right? And then you get it under contract. And then the goal here, is like transfer ownership. Right? So now you own this facility. Now what do? Right? What are all the things that you have to do within the first like 90 to 120 days of owning a storage facility? What do you have to do? And really, basically, this stage right here is just chasing tenants. Right? Unless you buy a facility that's like, either abandoned or it's a new facility that needs to be leased up, or it's only, if it's only 20% full, or like we're in the process of buying a facility right now and it's like 25% full. So obviously chasing tenants you're not going to be chasing a lot of tenants. You're going to be doing the lease up phase, right? That comes into stage 4. It's a little bigger here. And that's stage 4, which is like automations, systems, right? Okay. And so this is kind of how it goes. This is how it is. All right. And so like, let's just talk about, we'll talk about stages. Now notice in all 4 stages, stage 1 is finding it, right? Everybody right now is just thinking like, how do I find these things? How do I get them under contract? And that's really just one part of like the whole equation. One part of like a bigger picture. The truth is that when you buy a storage facility, the bulk of what you're going to be doing is under management, right? And most people, I'm going to tell you, most people do not even consider management as part of the process of like owning a storage facility. But the truth is that when you buy a storage facility, you become an asset manager. And the better that you can manage that facility, the more money you're going to make. If you are not good at managing the facility, then you are not going to make as much money as you could. Because I'm in the process right now of going through liquidations. I'm selling 3 of my facilities. And my facilities for all 3 of those are around 80% full. Right? I'm not at the 90% mark. I'm at the 80% mark. And when a lender, because basically what I'm doing is trying to get lenders to fund the deal for my buyers, right? And when I talk to my lenders, essentially all they care about is occupancy and rental rates. That's it. They don't care how much curb appeal you have. They don't care whether or not it's gated or not gated. They don't even care about any of that. All they care about is how much money is that facility making, and that's it. I'm telling you, that's it. Now, we'll get an appraisal to go out, so we want to make sure it looks okay. But, curb appeal is not a big factor going into the lenders, like going in. It might be a big factor, maybe getting customers to come in a little bit, but it's not a big factor in lenders' perceptions. Okay. So, so you want to be very, very good at preparing for closing and being ready so that on day 1 or in that first week, you are ready to take payments. Right. And then you want to also, going further, how long is it going to take you to get a hold of the tenants and get them into your system? Okay. So now in storage for stages 2, 3, and 4, I'll break this down so everybody kind of has an idea. Let me see if we get this over here. Let's just go like this. Stage 2. Stage 3. Okay. And stage 4. Okay. So we have onboarding. I'm not going to get into funding. Stage 2 funding is in stage 2, but I did funding last week, right? So we're only going to talk about onboarding a little bit. So onboarding. Onboarding equals taking payments. Onboarding means take payments. Well, how can you take payments? Right? You have to have a software. So during the onboarding period, you are doing demos of all the different types of property management software out there for storage facilities. Right? So that you can make an educated decision on what type of software that you want to use in order to manage your facility. And I really tell all my students do as many demos of every software out there. There's a plethora of softwares out there, but you want to really kind of get an idea of what everything offers. And then you also have to ask yourself with the software, how in depth do I want to be for stage 4, right? Because stage 4, remember, is automate and systematize. So when I think of stage 4, the 2 things that you have to think about when you start looking at softwares is how many storage facilities am I going to be owning? Overall, am I going to have one? Now, remember that like 50% of all storage facility owners only own one storage facility, and there's nothing wrong with just having one, right? Right. But if you want to own 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 like me, or 20 or whatever, 30 or whatever you want to own, then you have to think ahead, because if you choose a software and then you decide to move over to another one, because you imagine if you had like, if we have like 2,000 tenants right now. Could you imagine if we decided to move to another software right now? It would be like hell. Be horrible. And even when you just have 50 tenants or 100 tenants, it's just horrible to change softwares and get on all the tenants, to get them to re-log in, give their account information. Because what happens is when you go from one software to another software, that payment information is not saved, because that software, you can't transfer it. You can't just transfer it over and stuff or whatever. So you have to and also you have to get the new contract signed within that new software. And so that's the thing with software, the onboarding part, which comes in under transfer ownership. Let me see. So that's not my thing. Here it is. There you go. Transfer ownership is getting the contract signed and getting payment information, and getting the tenant account set up. Okay. So choosing the software, the one software that's going to grow with you based on what your self-storage investing goals are, is very key in the success of the management of your company or companies or whatever, how many you're going to have. Okay. So you want to be very clear about that, as you start getting into stage 2. This is and a lot of people go, oh, he's already got ESS, so let me just do ESS and I'll transfer it over and it's no big deal, right? But, but the thing is like ESS is doesn't have a lot of automation and systematizing in it. ESS is for those owners that have 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 facilities. I would say, if you're having more than a couple of facilities with ESS, and you want to really automate stuff, because like ESS does not do rate increase automation. Like it does, like you have to manually increase your own rates. Every single software has its own nuances. There's not one perfect software that can do everything that you want. And in fact, my husband, he's like, I want to start my own software. And that's what everybody always says when they have a lot of facilities, right? He's like, and I'm like, you are not going to go spend like $100,000 on the software. No. So, we use storage is what we use. And honestly, we've never really used any other softwares because we've always used storage. But the one thing I love about storage is that they are always asking the customer, us, what they're missing, and they're funneling a lot of money into development, right? And so there's always, every 6 months, there's like some new thing that's coming out for them. Whereas ESS, there is no developments at all. Like what it was 3 years ago, it's exactly what it was today. The only development ESS has is that they're raising their prices every 6 months. So, and then there's Breeze, and there's Yardi Breeze, and then there's and if you want to put some in the chat, if you guys know of any, y'all can put them in. But really the point is that during your onboarding phase, you want to demo every single software out there and just choose the best software that's going to fit your goals and your needs. All right. So for me personally, I always had in my mind that I was going to own 30 storage facilities, right? I don't know why I had this number 30. Now, I don't know if we'll ever really get to that number because we're at 15 and it's a lot of storage facilities. But I was always like, I feel like 30 is a good number, And so then I went and just, I did demos of all the softwares that were out there at the time. And we settled on Storage because it really had a very good user interface. And then also they were adding a lot of stuff to it. And they have a lot of ways that you can automate stuff. Okay. So, and so for us, making our facilities as passive as possible, right, and being able to automate as much as possible is very, very important for us. In fact, if we were using a different software outside of Storage last year, we probably would not have been able to be living in our RV and traveling, right? Because from August of 2020 until October of 2021, we lived in an RV and we traveled full time is what we did. So for a whole year, we were on and off in the RV up until then, like 50% of the time, but then we decided to go full time. And at that time, we had 12 storage facilities. And Storage really automated a lot of that stuff. The only thing we had to do is really manage our boots on the ground person and manage our phone people, like our in-house phone person. And at that time, for 12 facilities, we only had like maybe 2 or 3 other people working for us, and that's it. And so it was very easy to kind of manage all that. So the software is it's just depending on what your lifestyle wants to be, what's your goals, what's your dreams, for storage investing. That's when you really do the software demos and you really try to figure out which one you want to use. Okay. And you need to be asking really good questions. Like, what can I automate? What are all of the different features that you have? What are the other owners of facilities, really maximizing within the software? What are some things that you're beta testing right now? That your customers have told you that you're missing. So you really want to ask some really good questions when you're doing these demos for softwares. Okay. All right. So onboarding equals taking payments. So that means software, and that means doing your demos. Okay, you want to be able to take payments. Also, during the onboarding phase, you're getting ready for closing. Now, if you buy my Deal Analyzer, if you buy the Deal Analyzer 4.0, which is you just go straight to stacyrossetti.com and you can buy it. It's only a couple $100. And I have a whole bunch of training videos that go with it. But inside that Deal Analyzer, you get the onboarding checklist, because within our Deal Analyzer essentially takes you step by step in analyzing a storage facility. But once you get it under contract, then you also need the onboarding checklist. Our onboarding checklist has 50 things on it. It's a lot of stuff. You have to do a lot of stuff, okay? But I'm only going over a handful of the most important things. But just remember that if you really do want to get more information on onboarding, you could get the Deal Analyzer and you'll have that list of things that you need to do. Okay, so onboarding also equals what do we need to do for closing? What are the things that we need to do for closing, right? So obviously you have to find an attorney or title company to close your deal and do all the stuff that they need you to do. And then on top of that, you also need to find funding. But what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have whatever's required of your lender to close, right? And so one of the things that's a big thing that you're definitely going to have to do by closing period is you have to get insurance on the property, right? And sometimes getting a quote for insurance takes forever. So this is not something, and actually onboarding your software and picking out your software, doing the demos could take weeks to figure that out, right? And then on top of that, onboarding your software. So let's just say that you do choose Breeze or ESS, to onboard, to get that software ready, so that on day one, when you close, you're ready to use that software. That onboarding process for the software company takes weeks. They can't just flip a switch and have it ready for you, right? It takes 3-4 weeks, sometimes up to 5 weeks, 6 weeks sometimes to do that, depending on how busy they are and how many people they're onboarding or whatever they're doing. All right. So you also have to keep that in mind. Like you can't like wait till the very last week and be like, oh crap, I need software. Let me hurry up and go get something, right? Because what happens with the software company as well too is like they are going to want to get like all of the information for you, because what they do in the initial setup is they really kind of get the software ready for you, right? They'll want to get your contract, and they'll want to, put it into the system and get all the fields set up correctly so that you can check it. They'll want to get your rent roll, all your tenant information, so that they can put all that information into the system so that you have it ready for the first week. So you have to gather all this information for the software, from the seller, right? You have to gather all this information from the seller so you can give it to the software company so that you can have them set all that up. And that takes like several weeks to do. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're really kind of focusing on that. But one of the things that you're also going to need to close is insurance. You're going to have insurance on the property by the closing date, right? And actually, sometimes even a couple of days before, like we closed on our SBA loan. And to close on an SBA loan, it ain't easy. Right. And then on top of that, they want everything to be done before closing. So like we had to pay our insurance in full for the entire year. It was almost $10,000 for the insurance. And then because they wanted to show that we had coverage for that year, the proof of insurance by closing day. And we had to have all the beneficiaries set up and all that. So, and then it took us to get the quotes. It took us several weeks to get the quotes. Now, obviously, your first time that you're getting insurance, you're quoting out like a whole bunch of insurance companies. Now we just have one insurance company and they can just add it to our policy. But so it doesn't take that long for us. It takes maybe like a week or so. But especially in the beginning, when you don't have any storage facilities and you want to like maybe look at a couple different insurance companies, you've all gotten insurance quotes on your houses and stuff. Like they don't just give that to you immediately, right? It just takes, especially for commercial policies, because so insurance is like a commercial policy and it's like hazard insurance, right? It's so like, and insurance includes if there's like a tornado or a tree falls on it, there's something like that happens. That's the insurance I'm talking about. You're going to quote that out, depending on each facility, how big they are, it's what it's going to cost for the insurance company. And insurance is like crazy prices, right? So, and they have the whole thing where it's like you can finance your insurance, but you have to pay like 20% interest if you're going to finance it. And I know I'm going to pay 20% interest. So we just pay cash, right? So you want to make sure you have all that cash ready to purchase that facility as well too before closing date, right? So that you can show proof of insurance. Okay, good. Yeah. So that's a lot of onboarding stuff. That's a couple of like the main things for onboarding. And then once you close on the facility, now we're moving into like transfer ownership. Okay. So told you this right here all really just comes from like the software. Okay, so you're in the onboarding phase. You're taking several weeks to set your software up, whatever software that it is. Okay, and I recommend a software. I mean, if you don't have the software, then how are you going to make this passive? It's just become a job, right? Even if you have a small facility, it's like even for small facilities, you really should have a software. So you're taking a couple of weeks to really get everything set up. And depending on what their process is to set everything up, you have to make sure that you get all the information from the owner. And then depending on each of the each of the softwares, how their process is. So in storage, the way that they do it is they give you like this spreadsheet, and they want you to fill the spreadsheet out. And I'm going to tell you, the spreadsheet has like 100 columns. It has like a ridiculous amount of columns of how much stuff that you have to put on there. So like you have to get all that information from the owner and then input it into the spreadsheet. And then you give the spreadsheet to them, because then they can just import it right into the software. right? But like, so we personally, we have like one person dedicated to this damn spreadsheet because it's just like a lot of work to put all that in, and we just closed on 2 facilities. Like we have like 500 tenants, new tenants. Could you imagine, like, manually, you have to manually put all that information into the spreadsheet and then give it to storage, and then they import it and they set everything up. All right. And then you have to meet like with each of the software companies, you have to meet with them and go over like how you want your contract set up. How do you want all your fields set up? So in the software, the way that the softwares work is everything obviously is just like, it's, you have fields. So you have to create the template and you have to create the fields, right? So for instance, in the software, let me just make a list of this so you guys have this. But the software, this is where you're going to set your contract up, right? So if you have your contract, right, and it's going to say like, this, and then the name, your name, and it's going to have more words, and it's going to have the company, right? So each of these are like fields. And then also on your contract, you have your rates. So it's a 10 by 10 is this, and a 10 by 20 is this, or whatever. You put the rate in of what the property, what they're paying, right? And this is like a field, whatever it is. So you have to have all of your rates. You have to already know what the rate is and set it up within the software. So you give the software company your rates. Now, obviously later you can go in and you can change the rate, right? And then it changes automatically onto the contract. But you give them the initial rate of like what they're paying. Like if they have a 10 by 10 and they're paying $85, then it's going to come on and say you're paying a 10 by 10 and it's $85. It's due monthly on the first of the month. And then here is the late fees. Right? And then you have to list out like every late fee that you have, right? And we have like a ridiculous amount of late fees. We make a lot of money on late fees, auction fees, lock fees. We just come up with like, we have a lot of fees. You can, so just figure out, you can figure out whatever fees you want to do. And then you have to list all those out, right? So on the first of the month, your rent is due. By the third of the month, if you don't pay, here's a late fee. By the 8th of the month, if you don't pay, here's another late fee. And by the 10th, we're going to go out overlock. That's another fee. And then if you don't pay by the 15th, then we're going to charge you another fee. And then we're going to start the auction process. And that's another fee. And then we go through the auction process and that's another fee. And we have like a ridiculous amount of fees, right? And we list those on the contract because, you want the tenant to see that if they're late on their rent, they're going to have a lot of fees, right? Does that make sense? Right. And so you have to like essentially you have to have this is all set up in the onboarding process. You have to know all this in the onboarding phase so that during your transfer ownership phase, when you're chasing tenants, right? This is all chasing tenants. Then you're able to get them to sign the contract, get the payment information, right? And, they'll have this contract set up. And your contract, like, let's just say you have parking. You have to have an addendum for parking. You've got to have, are you going to have rental insurance, your tenant insurance? That's one thing I didn't put on here, but tenant insurance. So we could do insurance. We could do tenant and hazard. Okay. You have to have your tenant insurance set up so that when you charge tenant insurance, then, because you definitely want to charge tenant insurance because you'll make, a couple $1,000s a year on that, so like you want to have that all set up and you have to have that set up before you send out your contract because within your contract, you're going to have your tenant insurance, addendum. It's going to be set up. And you're also going to have your, in your contract, you're also going to have your parking. If you have any parking set up, right? It's going to be all like your parking addendum. Right. And then you have to also have the system set up for taking the license plate, not the license plate, your license ID, because you have to have like a picture of the tenant and their ID, and with them holding the ID, or you have to have some sort of a software that kind of manages that. And so that all has to be set up, right? So it's like software, like, this is like, what is it called? Like proof of a tenant, proof of like tenant, right? Because you have to have all that. So yeah, so just think of like with the software, how much work you have to set up. Okay, oh yeah, and then you have to have, so you got to have your late fees set up. You got to have your rates of your rates of units and sizes, right? So you have to set your sizes up, and then you set the rates up for your sizes, and then you set the late fees up, and then you set up like all your, your tenant insurance, and then your parking, and then the parking stuff, set all that up inside the software. Right. And then you have to and then basically during that whole process, you're chasing tenants to get them to sign this contract. So the onboarding phase, stage 2, is all the work that you have to do, like getting your software set up so that on day 1 you can take payments. And this is basically this is not all of it, but this is a lot of like what you're doing through that whole phase. So I always tell my students, make sure you get as much time that you can in the closing process, because during that time is all the things that you have to do to be ready to take payments from tenants in that first week that you own that facility. And the longer that it takes you to set this up, then the longer it's going to take for you to start getting payments. So we're asking for 90 days, like 90 to 120 days to close, just because we need that much time in order to set everything up, because it just really does take that much time. I had one of my students, she bought a facility and closed in 30 days. And I told her she was crazy, but it was a cash deal. Like she just paid like $700,000 cash. And so she was like, yeah, I'm paying cash. I can just close in 30 days. And I was like, you do realize how much work you have ahead of you. And she was like, I'll be fine. She didn't listen. So she's like running around like a crazy person. She's like, Stacy, I should have listened to you. I should have pushed this thing out like another month or whatever. So, and then after she closed, she still did not have the software. It took another like 15 days after closing for her software to be onboarded and for her to start getting tenants in and stuff. It took another like couple weeks. So the onboarding phase is such an important part of getting everything up and running. And remember, I told you the key is, how well are you going to be at managing it? And if you are not really systematizing these 3 processes as much as possible, then over the course of you buying your second and third facilities, it's just not going to fall into a good rhythm. Like we're at the point now where like every 90 days we close on a facility. And so, if you can think of like stage 1, and then we're moving to stage 2, and then we're moving to stage 3, every 90 to 120 days, I would say something like that is kind of where we're at. And then we're bringing in another facility, and it's moving to stage 2, and then it's moving to stage 3, and then it's moving to stage 4. And then we're bringing those facilities, and it's just kind of this big chain is how it's working for us. Okay. All right. So onboarding, taking payments, software, stage 2, and then we've got transfer ownership, stage 3, right? A little bit of, setting up, getting everything ready so that you can have that contract ready. All right. And then stage 4 is automating and systematizing. And this all falls down into 3 things. This is 3 things. First of all, it's your software. All right. Cheaper is not always better if you want to really systematize and automate things, right? You want to see which one gives you the bells and whistles that you know you're going to take advantage of. Now, the truth of the matter is that most owners of storage facilities, even if they have a software, if they're whatever software that it is, they are only utilizing like 20% of what that software offers. And just think about that. Of all the softwares that you have and utilize on a regular basis, are you really maximizing those softwares to their fullest potential? I'm saying, every software that we're using right now, it's like, we're always just using what we exactly need and that's it. And then like after you get into using the software for so long, it's like you don't even want to learn any of the new things that it offers. But the truth is these softwares are like super powerful. And if you can take advantage of all that they have to offer, then you can truly automate as much as you can possibly think of within your business so that it's doing it all on its own. All right. Depending on what the software offers, obviously. All right. So the software, like for us, like in storage, one of the things that we love is that the software offers dynamic pricing. Right? Dynamic pricing is something where you just like, you set it up so that your prices are changing based on what your vacancy is, right? There are not a lot of softwares out there that do that. But so if we're 80% full and we've got, 10 by 10s available, they're this much. And if we're 85% full, they're this much. And if they're 90% full, they're this much. And if we only have one 10 by 10 left, you can better believe that price is like really high, right? So that one person that really needs that 10 by 10 is going to pay that extra high price. So our prices on our units are not one price, $80 for a 10 by 10. Like our prices are all over the place. When you look at our prices, you have to figure out what the average price per square foot is for a 10 by 10 from our pricing, because every single month our prices are changing based on the availability of that unit. Okay, so that is dynamic pricing that you can automate in some of the softwares, but not most of them. Okay, another thing that we utilize in our software is auctions. Auctions. Can you automate your auction process? You do not realize this, but your auction process is a lot of work. And that's why a lot of people don't even do auctions, honestly. Every facility that I ever buy, like owners rarely ever do auctions because it's a lot of work to do all that. And so, the question is, can you automate? What can you automate? About the auction process. And some of the softwares have mechanisms where you can automate your auction process as much as possible. Now we do all of our auctions online, right? We do online. We don't ever I haven't even been to any of my facilities in like years anyways, but like everything, like our boots on the ground person takes pictures and then our office person uploads those pictures to like the online auction. And then our software has an API that, works with that, auction website. And then it's all completely automated within the software, right? So you want to make sure that you can find a software that does something like that to automate as much as you possibly can with your auction process. Right. So like myself and Pete, we have not done anything with auctions in years in our business because we hand it off to our boots on the ground person to take pictures, to our office person to upload the pictures into the software and get all that set up. And then our software really kind of automates everything. Okay. And then also we have I love the mail house. Right. Does your software company mail letters for you? Can you think of like when you buy a storage facility, how much mailing you have to do? Now, obviously your first facility, maybe you buy one that's like 100 doors and you have like 80 tenants or something like this. So you're doing 80 letters, but you have to manage those 80 letters, letting everybody know that you are the new managers. But the thing is like some of the software companies also have an in-house mailing company, right? Where you could just have them send, because what we do is we send out a letter from the owner, from the old owner, letting the tenants know that we have bought the property. So that's like, as soon as we close on our property, a letter from the owner, the ex-owner, goes out saying, hey, just letting you guys know I'm retiring and I've sold my property to Miss Lillian Self-Storage. Miss Lillian Self-Storage is now the new owners, and their team is going to contact you on what the process is to get into their new system. Please contact them at this number. I'm no longer in the equation. So that letter goes out first as soon as we close through the mail house, right? That's a template that we just import the list of tenants and just say, send out the letter to, right? That's all we do. And then a couple days later, the letter from us goes out. And the letter from us says, hey, just letting you guys know, we are the new property managers. Please contact us to, get so that we can get you into the system, and we'll get, if you need help, we'll help you get into the system, or please go to the website and you can just go on and do it yourself. But we need the contract signed, and we need your payment information within the next 7 days. If we don't get it, there'll be a fee put to your account for not giving us your information. Right. And that letter goes out right after the other one does. And that goes through the mail house. I mean, we were doing those in-house for a long time until, thank God, StoreEdge implemented the mail house. And so now we just took that up. It's the same price. Actually, it's cheaper because we would have to pay per hour and then plus postage to our office person to do that. And now all we have to pay is just the postage. Okay. So that worked out there. And then let's see, there's so much stuff, honestly. There's a ridiculous amount of stuff. Another thing that I really love about the software is the communication. You want to make sure that you get a software that has, emailing and texting capabilities. Right. So we are. So for instance, when somebody calls and, asks us for prices of units. Right. So hey, I'm interested in getting a 10 by 10. What's the price? Oh, let me put your information in the system, and then put the information into the system so that we have them as a lead. And then that way I could tell you the prices. And so then we put the information in, we give them the price. We say, okay, 10 by 10 is $80 or whatever, and they say, oh, okay, well, let me just call around and say, okay, look, what we're going to do is we're going to text you a 20% off code. And, if you call around and if you call around and you find something that's, cheaper than our 10 by 10s, just let us know. We'll match that price and we'll give you a 20% discount. Right. And then we text them that code, and we also text them that message as well, too. So they know. So that way, if they are calling around and they find something that's cheaper, then they can let us know. We'll just match that price. Right. But that's all done through text messaging and email communication. And you want to make sure that your software handles all emails. Think about what type of emails. It's email reminders for payments due, late fees, auctions. But then there's also trying to get referrals, trying to, get ratings, like Google ratings. You have so many ways and so many things that you need to communicate to your tenants about, that you need to set all those up as an email marketing campaign. And you want to make sure that your software offers that as well too. And you also want to make sure you have texting capabilities so that you can remind people when they're due on their payments, and then also send out codes or whatever you need to do, communicating with people that are interested in getting information about your unit sizes and stuff and locations. Right. So communication is very, very good. And this is all coming up. This is when you're here, when you're in stage 1, You got it under contract. It's going to take you a couple of months, obviously, to get out there and get it under contract. It's going to take you a couple months to close on this thing, right? And to onboard it. It's going to take you a couple of months to chase those tenants, get your software set up, get everything set up. And then it's going to take you a couple more months to really dig deep into that software, utilize everything that software has to offer so that you can automate as much as you possibly can, so that during this stage 4, you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I really feel like I could get out there and look for another facility. That is the goal. The goal is to automate as much as you can so that you can start looking for another facility and then do this cycle again. Okay. So those are the 4 stages. And then we went over now management, the three main parts of the management stages. Okay. All right. I see a couple of questions. I want to remind everybody that all this information that I just talked about is in my course, like super deep into my course. So make sure that you check that out at stacyrossetti.com. You get the deal analyzer, so you get the onboarding checklist as well too. And let's see what else. And then we have a couple of questions. So Dana is asking, do you use a broker? No, I do not use a broker. No, I do not. I have students that have brought me deals. I've bought one facility from a wholesaler, and one facility from a student that wholesaled the facility for me. But all of the other 13 facilities that we have were all brought but were all found by just me going directly to the owner. Okay, directly. So I have actually never hired a broker to find me a facility. Oh, do you use a broker for insurance? Okay, a broker for insurance? Yeah, we use a broker for insurance. Yeah, you want to get a broker so they can just see what all the prices out there. Okay, I have a facility being built that I'm a part owner on. It's going to be built in 9 months. After 5 years, we're going to sell the facility for $10 million. Would you recommend selling once the matured period of 5 years is obtained, or would you recommend keeping the units? So essentially, it's going to, whatever amount of money that it's going to cost you to build that facility, you're going to double that when you're done building that. I would kind of sort of be right around the doubled price for selling it. But if you hold on to that and you lease it up, you'll be selling it at the triple amount. So let's just say that you're building a facility for $500,000. You'll be able to sell it around the $1 million mark. But if you hold on to it, you'll be at like 1.5 million when you lease it up, something like that. Just kind of give you a perspective. Okay, good. And then we have one more. Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so I think that's it. That was the only question. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there, listening to me. I'm here every week. And just a quick reminder for everybody that came in late, you want to check out the Triad, right? The Triad is the super simple self-storage online course, the deal analyzer, and then the Wednesday free training. This is the free training. All right. These 3 together is powerhouse for self-storage investing. I also have the Facebook group, Super Simple Self-Storage, so make sure you join that. Any questions that you have, put them in there. And then my websites are stacyrossetti.com. And then also the fund, if you want to be a passive investor, it's stacyrossetti.com/fund. And then Storage Nerds is my coaching program. Okay. I appreciate your time. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storage Nerds. Hope this informative conversation inspired you to go out there and jump into this highly profitable business venture that people rarely talk about. Get more tips on storage space investing at www.stacyrossetti.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rating. Together, let's build that thriving passive income one storage space at a time. Until next time.